Taehyun stared at his computer screen, fingers dancing across the keyboard as lines of code filled the monitor. The clock in the corner showed 11:47 p.m. His apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of his computer fans and the distant sound of traffic from the streets below. Empty coffee cups sat scattered across his desk, evidence of another long night spent working on his latest project. He lived alone in a small apartment on the 5th floor of an old building in Seoul. The place was modest but comfortable, filled with gaming posters, technical manuals, and computer equipment that took up most of his living space. At 28 years old, Tae-hyun had built a simple life for himself. He worked as a software engineer from home, rarely went out except for groceries, and spent most of his free time gaming or coding personal projects. His parents worried he was too isolated, but he liked the quiet. The knock on his door made him jump. It wasn't a normal knock. It was urgent, desperate, almost like someone was pounding with their fist. Tae-hyun pulled off his headphones and listened. Another series of knocks, louder this time. His heart started racing. Nobody visited him this late. His few friends always called first. He walked to the door slowly, checking the peephole. What he saw made no sense. A woman stood in the hallway, but she didn't look like anyone he'd ever seen before. Even through the distorted peephole view, he could tell something was very wrong. She was tall, extremely tall, and her skin seemed to shimmer with a strange blue-silver color. Her white hair was matted with something dark. Blood, maybe? "Please," a voice called from the other side. It was female, speaking Korean but with an odd accent. "I need help. Please open." Tae-hyun's hand hovered over the door handle. Every logical part of his brain screamed at him to call the police and leave the door locked. But something in her voice made him hesitate. She sounded hurt, desperate, and genuinely afraid. Against his better judgment, he unlocked the door and opened it a crack. The woman practically fell forward. He caught her instinctively, and the weight of her nearly knocked him over. She was wearing some kind of armor, but it was damaged and scorched with burn marks. Up close, he could see her skin really was silver blue, almost glowing faintly in the dim hallway light. Her eyes opened and met his, and Tae-hyun forgot how to breathe. They looked like galaxies, swirling with colors he couldn't even name. "Sorry," she whispered. "So sorry to involve you." Tae-hyun dragged her inside and shut the door quickly. He laid her down on his couch, his mind racing to process what he was seeing. This woman was not human. That much was obvious. Her proportions were almost human, but not quite. She was at least 6 feet 2 inches tall, with features that were too perfect, too symmetrical. The armor she wore looked like nothing from Earth, made of materials that seemed to shift colors in the light. He stood there frozen, not knowing what to do. Should he call someone? Who would he even call? The police? An ambulance? What would he even say? The woman's eyes snapped open suddenly, and her hand moved faster than Tae-hyun could track. She grabbed something from her belt and pointed it at him. It was clearly a weapon, glowing with blue energy. He threw his hands up immediately. "Don't move," she said, her voice stronger now. She studied him carefully, her strange eyes scanning him from head to toe. After a long moment, she lowered the weapon. "You're not one of them. You're actually human." "Of course I'm human," Tae-hyun managed to say. His voice came out higher than normal. "What are you?" She sat up slowly, wincing in pain. The burns on her armor looked serious, but as he watched, the wounds on her exposed skin seemed to be closing on their own. The silver-blue skin knitted itself back together, leaving no scars. "My name is Yuna," she said. She reached up and touched something on her neck, a small device attached there. "This translator helps me speak your language. I am from very far away. Different star. Different world." "An alien," Tae-hyun said numbly. "You're an alien." "Yes," Yuna confirmed. She looked toward his window nervously. And I'm being hunted. I needed shelter just for tonight. I saw your window, your lights. I'm sorry for bringing danger to your door. Danger? Tae-hyun felt his stomach drop. What kind of danger? Before Yuna could answer, a strange sound came from outside. It was high-pitched, like electronic squealing that hurt his ears. Yuna's expression turned dark. She stood up quickly, moving to the window and peering out carefully. They're scanning the area, she said quietly. Looking for my energy signature. They can't get an exact location in a building this size with this many metal structures, but they know I'm close. Who? Tae-hyun asked. He moved closer to the window, and Yuna pulled him back sharply. Don't let them see you, she warned. The Vortans. They're soldiers from an empire that has been at war with my people for years. They destroyed my home planet 3 years ago. I've been fighting them ever since. Tae-hyun's mind was spinning. This morning, he'd woken up worried about a deadline for work. Now there was an alien warrior in his apartment talking about intergalactic war. None of this felt real. Why are they here? He asked. On Earth, I mean. Why would they care about our planet? Yuna turned to look at him, and her expression was grave. Because they're already here. They've been infiltrating Earth for years, preparing for a silent invasion. I came here tracking them. I discovered their plans and tried to stop them, but I was ambushed. She moved away from the window and sat back down on his couch. She looked exhausted, and despite her wounds healing, he could tell she was in pain. Your world doesn't know, she continued. Your people have no idea that you're being taken over from the inside. The Vortans replace key people with copies, clones that look and act human but follow their orders. They've been doing it slowly, carefully, so no one notices. Tae-hyun felt cold fear creeping up his spine. That's impossible. Someone would notice. Would they? Yuna asked. She pulled out a small device from her belt and activated it. A holographic screen appeared in the air, showing news footage and photographs. Watch closely. Look at the eyes, the small movements. They're good, but not perfect. He watched the footage, and once Yuna pointed out what to look for, he started seeing it. Small glitches in behavior, moments where people seemed to freeze for a split second before continuing normally. Responses that were slightly too perfect, too rehearsed. This can't be real, he whispered. It is, Yuna said firmly, and by helping me tonight, you're now part of this. They'll eventually trace me here. They'll want to know who helped me. I'm sorry, Tae-hyun. I truly am. But you're involved now whether you want to be or not. Tae-hyun looked at this alien warrior princess sitting on his cheap couch, surrounded by his gaming posters and scattered computer parts, telling him his world was being invaded. His boring, quiet life had just become very complicated. The scanning sound outside grew louder. Tae-hyun made tea. It was a stupid thing to do given the circumstances, but his grandmother had always said tea helped with thinking, and he desperately needed to think clearly. His hands shook as he poured hot water over the tea bags. In his living room, an alien princess warrior sat recovering from wounds that had mostly healed themselves. Outside, alien soldiers were scanning for her. His normal life had ended the moment he opened that door. Yuna accepted the tea gratefully and took a careful sip. She seemed surprised by the taste, then smiled slightly. It was the first time Tae-hyun had seen her smile, and it made her look less like a terrifying warrior and more like a person who was simply very tired. Thank you, she said. Your people's hospitality is kind even in strange situations. You said your planet was destroyed, Tae-hyun said, sitting down in his desk chair across from her. Can you tell me what happened? Yuna's smile faded. She looked down at the tea in her hands. My world was called Celestia. We were part of the Outer Rim territories, planets that worked together for defense and trade. We had a military force called the Celestial Guard, and I was part of the royal family that led it. We weren't conquerors. We protected smaller worlds from threats. She paused, and Tae-hyun could see pain in her eyes that had nothing to do with her physical wounds. The Vortan Empire wanted to expand, she continued. They demanded we surrender our territories and join them. We refused. They sent their fleets. We fought for 6 months, but they had more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. They destroyed our orbital stations, then began bombarding the planet's surface. We evacuated as many people as we could, but most didn't make it out. I'm sorry, Tae-hyun said quietly. I watched my home burn from space, Yuna said. My parents stayed behind to coordinate the evacuation. They didn't survive. After that, those of us who remained became guerrilla fighters. We've been hitting Vortan operations across the galaxy, trying to slow their expansion. That's how I found out about Earth. She set down her tea and activated her holographic device again. This time it showed Earth from space, with multiple red points marked across the surface. These are Vortan infiltration sites, she explained. They've been here for decades, slowly replacing key people in your governments, militaries, corporations. Earth is special. Your planet sits on something called a convergence point, a place where dimensional energy gathers. Most species can't detect it without advanced equipment, but it makes your world incredibly valuable. Valuable how? Tae-hyun asked, leaning forward. Whoever controls Earth can potentially open portals to anywhere in the galaxy instantly, Yuna said. It would give the Vortans the ability to move their armies anywhere without needing ships or time. They could conquer everything. The weight of her words hit Tae-hyun like a punch. So they're not here to invade Earth. They're here to use it as a weapon. Exactly, Yuna confirmed. And they're being careful because other galactic powers have been watching Earth from a distance. Nobody wants to risk destabilizing a convergence point. It could tear holes in space itself. So the Vortans are taking over quietly, from within. So by the time anyone realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. Tae-hyun's phone buzzed on his desk. He glanced at it and saw a message from his best friend, Dae-won. They'd known each other since university and talked almost every day. The message read, "Hey, are you home? Need to discuss something important. Coming over now." Something about the message felt wrong. Dae-won always used casual language with typos and emoji. This message was formal, cold. Tae-hyun felt his stomach twist. "What's wrong?" Yuna asked, noticing his expression. "My friend," Tae-hyun said slowly. "He's acting strange. He never texts like this." He showed her the message. Yuna's face went dark. She took his phone and did something with her device, scanning it. Her holographic display showed code and data flowing past. After a moment, she handed the phone back. "The message location data shows he's been at a building I have marked as a suspected Vortan facility," she said, "for the past 3 days, without interruption." "No," Tae-hyun said, standing up. "No, that's not possible. Dae-won works at an advertising company. He's been my friend for 10 years. "Was your friend?" Yuna corrected gently. "I'm sorry, but if the Vortans have replaced him, the person you knew is gone. They keep the memories and personality, but the clone follows Vortan orders. They probably suspect you're connected to me somehow and sent him to investigate." Tae-hyun felt sick. He thought about all their conversations, all their shared history. Was Dae-won really gone, replaced by some alien copy? Before he could process this, there was a knock on his door. But this knock was normal, friendly. A woman's voice called out, "Tae-hyun, it's Hana from next door. I heard some noise earlier. Is everything okay?" Yuna immediately moved toward his bedroom, preparing to hide. Tae-hyun held up a hand. "Wait," he whispered. "Hana's nice. She's a nurse. She's helped me before when I was sick." "Can you trust her?" Yuna asked. Tae-hyun thought about it. Hana had moved in about a year ago and had always been kind to him. She sometimes brought him food when she noticed he hadn't left his apartment in days. She seemed genuinely caring. "I think so," he said. He opened the door a crack. Hana stood there in her nurse's scrubs, having apparently just gotten home from work. She was in her early 30s with short hair and a concerned expression. "Hey," she said. "I heard what sounded like someone falling earlier, and then some weird electronic sounds. Just wanted to make sure you're okay." "I'm fine," Tae-hyun said, trying to sound normal. "Just knocked over some equipment. You know how clumsy I am." Hana studied him carefully. She'd always been perceptive. "You're sweating, and you look scared. Tae-hyun, what's really going on?" Before he could answer, another electronic squeal sounded from outside, much louder this time. Hana jumped, looking toward the window. "What is that?" she asked. "That's the third time I've heard that sound tonight. It's not coming from any normal source." Tae-hyun made a decision. If the Vortans were about to track Yuna here, he might need help. And Hana was trained in medicine. She might be useful. "You need to come inside," he said, pulling the door open wider. "Now." Hana stepped in, looking confused. Then she saw Yuna standing in the middle of the room, tall and silver blue and clearly not human. Hana froze. "Okay," Hana said after a long moment. "I'm either having a stroke or that's an alien in your apartment." "It's an alien," Tae-hyun confirmed. "Her name is Yuna. She's a princess and a warrior, and she's being hunted by other aliens who are secretly invading Earth, and I think my best friend has been replaced by a clone, and I'm pretty sure I'm having a mental breakdown." Hana looked at Yuna, then at Tae-hyun, then back at Yuna. Then she closed the door behind her and locked it. "All right," she said calmly. "I'm going to need you to explain everything from the beginning, but first she's hurt. I can see burn marks on her armor. Let me look at her wounds." Yuna seemed surprised by Hana's reaction. "You're not afraid?" "I work in an emergency room," Hana said, pulling medical supplies from her bag. "I've learned to stay calm in weird situations. Besides, if you wanted to hurt us, you probably would have already." She approached Yuna carefully. "May I examine you?" Yuna nodded and started removing her damaged armor. Underneath, her skin showed healing burns and cuts. Hana's eyes widened at seeing the wounds close on their own. But she stayed professional, cleaning and treating what she could. "Your biology is fascinating," Hana said. "You heal much faster than humans." "My people evolved with advanced regeneration," Yuna explained. "But it takes energy. I'm exhausted." As Hana worked, Tae-hyun explained everything Yuna had told him. Hana listened carefully, asking questions. When he finished, she sat back and was quiet for a moment. "My hospital director," she finally said. "For the past month, he's been acting strange, cold, mechanical. He made decisions that made no medical sense, like canceling important programs and redirecting funding to some private research facility. I thought he was just stressed or corrupt, but now—" "He might be replaced," Yuna said. "This is how the Vortans work. They take over key positions slowly." A louder electronic sound came from outside, and this time it was accompanied by heavy footsteps in the hallway. Multiple footsteps, moving fast, moving toward Tae-hyun's door. Yuna grabbed her weapon and stood. "They've found me. They're coming." Tae-hyun's phone buzzed again. Another message from Daewon. "I'm in the building. Stay where you are." The footsteps reached his door. The door exploded inward. Not with fire or force, but with a strange energy that made the metal simply dissolve into particles. 3 figures stepped through, and even though they looked human at first glance, their movements were too precise, too synchronized. They wore business suits, but their eyes glowed with a faint red light. Yuna moved faster than Tae-hyun could follow. She fired her weapon, and a bolt of blue energy struck the first Vortan soldier in the chest. He stumbled back but didn't fall. Instead, his suit burned away to reveal armor underneath, similar to Yuna's but darker, more aggressive. "Get down!" Yuna shouted to Tae-hyun and Hana. They dropped to the floor as energy blasts filled the small apartment. Tae-hyun's computer desk exploded into splinters. His gaming posters caught fire. The Vortans advanced steadily, firing their weapons with mechanical precision. Yuna fought like someone who had spent years in war. She rolled behind his couch, using it as cover while returning fire. But she was still weakened from her earlier injuries, and there were 3 of them. One Vortan circled around, trying to flank her. Tae-hyun's mind raced. He was just a programmer. He had no weapons, no combat training, nothing useful in a fight. But he did know his building better than anyone. He'd lived here for 5 years and had explored every corner during boring weekends. "The bathroom!" he shouted to Hana. "The wall is thin. We can break through to the next apartment." Hana understood immediately. She grabbed Tae-hyun's arm and they crawled toward the bathroom while Yuna kept the Vortans busy. In the bathroom, Tae-hyun grabbed a hammer from under the sink where he kept basic tools. He started smashing at the wall and Hana helped, kicking at the weakened plaster. The wall gave way after several hits, revealing the empty apartment next door. The elderly couple who lived there had moved out last month. Tae-hyun and Hana squeezed through just as another energy blast tore through the bathroom door. "Yuna!" Tae-hyun called back. "This way!" Yuna fired twice more, then ran for the bathroom. She dove through the hole in the wall just as a blast scorched the tiles where she'd been standing. The 3 of them landed in the empty apartment, breathing hard. "We need to move," Yuna said. "More will come. They'll surround the building." They ran for the apartment door and into the hallway. The building's fire alarm started blaring, triggered by the smoke from the fight. Other residents were opening their doors, looking confused and scared. An old man poked his head out, and Tae-hyun wanted to warn him to get back inside, but there was no time. They reached the stairwell and started going up instead of down. The Vortans would expect them to flee downward toward the exits. Yuna led them up to the roof access, and to Tae-hyun's surprise, she didn't break the lock. Instead, she pressed her hand against it and whispered something. The lock simply opened. "Technology recognition," she explained quickly. "My people developed it." On the roof, the night air was cold and the city lights of Seoul spread out below them. Yuna ran to the far corner where the roof met the next building. She reached into the air and seemed to grab nothing, then pulled. Suddenly, a section of space rippled and revealed a hidden compartment attached to the building's side. Inside was equipment, weapons, and supplies. "Emergency cache," Yuna said. "I set them up around the city when I first arrived, just in case." She pulled out more weapons and handed one to Hana. "Point and think about firing. The weapon reads intention. It's designed to be used by anyone." Hana took it carefully, and Tae-hyun noticed she didn't look afraid. She looked determined. Maybe her military background was showing. "You were in the military?" Tae-hyun asked as Yuna grabbed more supplies. 4 years, Hana confirmed. "Medical Corps. I got out when I started questioning some of the orders we were getting. Officers were making decisions that put soldiers at risk for no tactical reason. Now I wonder if those officers had been replaced." The roof access door exploded open, not with the dissolving energy but with a physical kick. The figure who stepped through made Tae-hyun's heart sink. It was Dae-won, or what looked like Dae-won, his friend's face, his friend's body, but the movements were wrong. The eyes were wrong. "Tae-hyun," Dae-won said in a flat voice, "you're harboring a fugitive. Surrender her and you won't be harmed." "Dae-won," Tae-hyun said, his voice breaking. "Is any part of you still in there?" "The human Dae-won is gone," the clone replied. "His memories serve the Vortan Empire now. You should do the same. Earth's integration is inevitable." Yuna raised her weapon, but Tae-hyun pushed it down. "Wait," he said. "Maybe we can still help him. There might be a way to reverse it." "There isn't," Yuna said gently. "I'm sorry." The Daiwan clone moved forward, and more Vortan soldiers came through the door behind him. Yuna fired at the soldiers, forcing them to take cover. She grabbed Tae-hyun's arm. "We have to jump," she said. "Jump!" Tae-hyun looked over the edge. They were 5 stories up. "We'll die!" "Trust me," Yuna said. She pulled a device from her equipment cache and attached it to her belt. She grabbed both Tae-hyun and Hana, and then she ran for the edge and leaped. Tae-hyun's stomach dropped as they fell, the ground rushing up toward them. He wanted to scream but couldn't find his voice. Then the device activated, and their fall slowed dramatically. They drifted down like feathers, landing softly in the alley behind the building. The moment they touched ground, Yuna was moving again, pulling them toward the street. "Where are we going?" Hana asked, keeping pace easily. She was in better shape than Tae-hyun. "My ship," Yuna said. "It's cloaked in the mountains outside the city, Gangwon Province. If we can reach it, I can get more weapons, more resources, maybe even call for help." "How do we get there?" Tae-hyun asked, gasping for breath as they ran. "They'll track us. They'll have checkpoints." "Then we don't use normal routes," Yuna said. They reached a main street where late-night traffic still moved. Yuna stopped and looked around, then pointed at a delivery truck stopped at a red light. "That one." Before Tae-hyun could ask what she meant, Yuna ran to the truck and did something to the door lock with her device. It opened. The driver, a young man listening to music, barely had time to react before Yuna pulled him out gently but firmly. "Very sorry," Yuna said to the confused driver. "Emergency. Your truck will be returned." She pressed something into his hand. It looked like a small, glowing crystal. "This will be valuable. Compensation." They piled into the truck with Yuna taking the driver's seat. She studied the controls for exactly 3 seconds, then started driving like she'd been doing it for years. Tae-hyun and Hana sat in the back among boxes of convenience store supplies. "How do you know how to drive?" Tae-hyun asked. "I've studied Earth culture and technology for months while tracking the Vortans," Yuna said. "I'm a quick learner." She took a sharp turn, and Tae-hyun grabbed onto a support bar. Through the truck's side mirror, he could see vehicles pursuing them. Black cars with tinted windows moving too precisely through traffic. "They're following us," he said. "I know," Yuna replied. She pulled out her holographic device and handed it to Tae-hyun. "You're good with computers. Can you access your city's traffic system?" Tae-hyun looked at the alien technology in his hands. The interface was strange, but somehow intuitive. He found he could understand it almost instinctively. Within minutes, he had hacked into Seoul's traffic control network. It was surprisingly easy with the advanced tools Yuna's device provided. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. "Create chaos," Yuna said with a slight smile. "Make it impossible for them to follow us." Tae-hyun's fingers moved across the holographic interface. He changed traffic lights, causing confusion at intersections. He triggered emergency signals that made cars pull over. He even managed to activate construction warnings that didn't exist, redirecting traffic away from their route. Behind them, the pursuing vehicles got caught in the manufactured chaos. They tried to push through, but human drivers reacted unpredictably, blocking them in. "You're good at this," Hana said, watching over his shoulder. "I've always been good with computers," Tae-hyun said. "I just never thought I'd be using it to run from alien invaders." They drove for an hour, leaving Seoul behind. The city lights faded, replaced by darker roads leading into the mountains. Yuna finally pulled the truck into a forest area and parked it deep among the trees. "We walk from here," she said. "The ship is another 2 kilometers up the mountain." They climbed through the forest, using flashlights from the truck. The terrain was rough and Tae-hyun kept stumbling, but Hana helped him. She seemed perfectly comfortable in the wilderness. "Camping training," she explained. "Military." Finally, they reached a clearing. Yuna stopped and touched her device. The air in front of them rippled and suddenly a ship appeared. It was beautiful, sleek and silver, about the size of a small house. It had been there all along, just hidden by technology Tai-hyun couldn't begin to understand. "Welcome to my home," Yuna said. "For now, at least." But as they approached the ship, lights suddenly flooded the clearing. They were surrounded. Dozens of armed figures emerged from the forest, weapons pointed at them. Tai-hyun's heart sank. They'd walked right into a trap. Then one figure stepped forward into the light. And Yuna's expression changed to pure shock. It was another alien woman, similar to Yuna, but with darker skin and red markings on her armor. She lowered her weapon and smiled. "Hello, sister," the woman said. "Did you miss me?" Yuna's weapon came up instantly, pointed at the other alien woman. The armed figures around them tensed, but the woman simply laughed and waved them down. "Still so quick to fight," the woman said. "That hasn't changed." "Sora," Yuna said, and her voice was cold. "You're supposed to be dead." "So are you, apparently," Sora replied. She approached slowly, hands slightly raised. "Can we talk before shooting each other? I came here to help." "Help?" Yuna's weapon didn't lower. "The last time we spoke, you wanted to destroy every Vortan-occupied planet regardless of civilian casualties. You called me weak for trying to save innocents." Tae-hyun watched this exchange nervously. Sora looked similar to Yuna, but different in important ways. Where Yuna's armor was silver and blue, designed for defense, Sora's was black and red, built for offense. Her weapons looked heavier, more destructive. She carried herself like someone who had seen even more war than Yuna. "I was angry," Sora said. "We all were. We just lost everything. But I've had 3 years to think, Yuna. 3 years of fighting. And you know what I learned? That you were right. Destroying planets doesn't stop the Vortons. It just makes us as bad as them." "Then why are you here?" Yuna demanded. "Why surround my ship with armed soldiers?" "Because I wasn't sure you'd listen to me," Sora admitted. She gestured to the armed figures around them. "These are resistance fighters from different worlds the Vortans have attacked. When we heard you were on Earth, we came to find you. We want to work together." Yuna seemed unsure. Tae-hyun could see the conflict in her expression. Finally, she lowered her weapon slightly. "Talk. But if this is a trap, I'll make sure you regret it." Sora smiled. "Fair enough." She signaled to her soldiers, and they lowered their weapons as well. Everyone relaxed slightly. Sora turned her attention to Tae-hyun and Hana, studying them with interest. "Humans," she said. "You've made human allies. That's unexpected." "They saved my life," Yuna said firmly. "They're under my protection." "I'm not doubting that," Sora said. She nodded respectfully to Tae-hyun and Hana. "Anyone who helps Yuna is worth respecting. Come, let's talk inside the ship. We have information you need to see." They entered Yuna's ship, and Tae-hyun was amazed by the interior. It was small but efficiently designed with technology that seemed to blend with organic elements. The walls glowed softly, providing light. Control panels responded to touch and thought. There were sleeping quarters, a medical bay, and what looked like a command center. Sora brought up a holographic display that filled the center of the room. It showed Earth with numerous marked locations, far more than what Yuna had shown earlier. "We've been monitoring Vortan activity on Earth for the past year," Sora explained. "There are over 300 infiltration points worldwide. They've replaced key people in every major government, military, and corporation. But that's not the worst part." She changed the display, and now it showed energy patterns swirling across the planet. Tae-hyun didn't understand the technical details, but even he could see that something was building, concentrating. "Earth sits on a dimensional convergence," Sora continued. "You know this already, Yuna. But what you might not know is that the Vortans aren't just planning to use it. They're planning to crack it open." "That's insane," Yuna said. "Cracking a convergence could tear holes in space. It could destroy the entire planet. They don't care, Sora said. They've built a device underground, right beneath your capital city of Seoul. They call it a dimensional gate. Once activated, it will let them move armies instantly anywhere in the galaxy. But the energy required to open it will destabilize the convergence. Earth will become uninhabitable within a year. Tae-hyun felt sick. They're going to destroy our entire planet just to build a weapon? Yes, Sora confirmed. She looked at him with something like sympathy. The Vortans have done this before. They used a smaller convergence point on a planet called Meridian. The planet is now a dead wasteland, but they got their gate. They've been using it to expand their empire. Earth's convergence is much more powerful. With it, they'll be unstoppable. Hana had been quiet, processing everything. Now she spoke up. You said they built this device in Seoul. Where exactly? Sora brought up a detailed map of the city. Here, she said, pointing to an area in the commercial district, beneath what appears to be a corporate headquarters building. The company is called Global Future Industries. Does that mean anything to you? Tae-hyun's blood ran cold. That's where Dae-won works, my friend who was replaced. His company is a front for the Vortans. Most likely, Sora agreed. They create these fake companies to hide their operations. The building's basement goes down 20 floors, far deeper than city records show. That's where the gate is being constructed. Then we destroy it, Yuna said immediately. We gather weapons, fight our way in, and blow it up before they can activate it. It's not that simple, Sora said. The gate is nearly complete. They have it heavily guarded by Vortan soldiers, automated defenses, and probably hostages. If we attack directly, they'll activate it early. Better to destroy Earth trying to use it than let it fall into enemy hands. That's how they think. So what do we do? Tae-hyun asked. Sora looked at him with interest. You're the computer expert Yuna mentioned? The one who hacked your city's traffic system to help them escape? I guess, Tae-hyun said, feeling uncomfortable under her intense gaze. Then you might be our key, Sora said. She brought up technical schematics that made Tae-hyun's head hurt. The gate requires a massive energy surge to activate. They've been slowly modifying your city's power grid over the past 5 years to provide it. If someone could hack into the power system and shut down the specific nodes they need, it would buy us time. How much time? Yuna asked. Days, maybe a week, Sora said. Enough time to plan a proper assault or evacuate key people. But hacking their system won't be easy. They've got Vortan security protocols. I can do it, Tae-hyun said, surprising himself with his confidence. With the right tools and information, I can hack almost anything. He's not going in alone, Hana said firmly. If we're doing this, we work as a team. Yuna looked at both of them, and Tae-hyun saw pride in her eyes. You understand this will be dangerous? More dangerous than anything you've faced tonight? Our entire planet is at stake, Hana said. That makes it our fight too. Sora smiled. I like them. Humans have spirit. She turned to Yuna. There's something else. We found others. Humans who've noticed the infiltration. They've been trying to expose it, but they're labeled as conspiracy theorists. One of them is a journalist who's been tracking disappearances and strange behavior patterns. Her name is Ji-woo. The holographic display showed a woman in her 30s with determined eyes. She was surrounded by papers, photos, and computer screens covered in research. She's been investigating Global Future Industries for 6 months, Sora explained. She's gotten close to the truth but has no proof that anyone will believe. We contacted her. She's willing to help. More humans in danger, Yuna said, shaking her head. But she didn't sound opposed. She sounded accepting. They were already in danger, Sora countered. The Vortans have noticed her investigation. She's on their list. At least with us, she has a chance. They spent the next hour reviewing Sora's intelligence. She'd been thorough, mapping out Vortan operations, identifying replaced individuals, and gathering as much information as possible about the dimensional gate. Her team had been watching Earth closely, preparing for this moment. "Why didn't you act sooner?" Yuna asked. "If you knew about this for a year, why wait?" Sora's expression became serious. "Because I wanted to make sure we did it right. I wanted proof that humans were worth saving." "No offense," she added, looking at Tai-hyun and Hana. "But some species aren't ready for galactic contact. They're too divided, too aggressive. Saving them sometimes causes more harm than good." "And?" Yuna pressed. "And I've been watching your news, your internet, your people," Sora said. "You fight among yourselves constantly. You have so many problems, but you also have something special. When you work together, when you're united for a common cause, you're capable of amazing things. You create beautiful art, incredible technology, and you care deeply about justice and protecting the innocent. You're flawed, but you're worth fighting for." Tae-hyun felt a strange mix of emotions at her words. Pride and shame, hope and worry. "So, what's the plan?" he asked. Sora brought up a new display showing a timeline. "We have 72 hours before the gate is scheduled to activate. In that time, we need to do 3 things. First, Tai-hyun needs to hack the power grid and shut down the specific nodes feeding the gate. Second, we gather the human resistance and prepare them for what's coming. Third, we plan an assault on the gate facility itself." "And if we fail?" Hana asked. "If we fail, the Vortans get their weapon, and Earth becomes a dead planet within a year," Sora said bluntly. "So we don't fail." Yuna looked at Tae-hyun and Hana. "You can still walk away. This isn't your war." "Yes, it is," Tae-hyun said. "They made it our war when they came to our planet, when they replaced my friend, when they threatened to destroy our home. I'm in." "So am I," Hana agreed. Yuna smiled, and it was a real smile this time, warm and genuine. "Then let's save your world." Outside the ship, Sora's soldiers were setting up a temporary camp. Inside, plans were being made. And in Seoul, in the basement of Global Future Industries, the dimensional gate hummed with building energy, counting down to activation. The clock was ticking. The broadcast went live at exactly midnight. Tae-hyun had spent hours preparing it, using every tool and trick he knew to make sure it would reach as many people as possible. They'd decided the truth needed to be revealed to the world, even if most wouldn't believe it at first. Ji-woo sat in front of a camera in Yuna's ship, surrounded by evidence. She'd brought 6 months' worth of research, photographs, documents, video footage showing people behaving strangely, disappearances that authorities had ignored. Beside her, Sora's team had set up alien technology that would provide undeniable proof. "My name is Ji-woo," she began, speaking calmly and clearly. "I'm an investigative journalist, and for the past 6 months I've been tracking something that sounds impossible. People are being replaced. Key figures in governments, corporations, and militaries around the world are not who they appear to be. I've been called crazy, a conspiracy theorist, someone looking for attention. But tonight, I'm going to show you proof." The broadcast showed everything. Footage of Vortan soldiers, their true forms revealed. Scans of the dimensional gate hidden beneath Seoul. Testimony from Yuna and Sora about the invasion. Even footage of the fight at Tae-hyun's apartment, captured by building security cameras before the Vortans could erase it. Within minutes, the broadcast was being shared across social media. Within an hour, it had millions of views. By morning, the entire world was talking about it. The reaction was chaos. Some people believed immediately. Others called it the most elaborate hoax in history. Governments scrambled to respond. News channels debated endlessly about whether it was real or fake. Scientists analyzed the footage. Military experts studied the weapons shown. But not everyone was in doubt. In living rooms and offices around the world, people looked at their leaders, their bosses, their colleagues with new suspicion. Some recognized the signs that Ji-woo had pointed out. The strange pauses, the too perfect responses, the small glitches in behavior. In the mountains, watching the global response on monitors, Tae-hyun felt a mix of triumph and terror. They'd done it. They'd told the world. But what came next? His answer arrived within 6 hours, a counter-broadcast, this time from the United Nations. A man Tae-hyun recognized as a security director spoke with calm authority. The footage broadcast last night is a sophisticated cyber attack designed to create fear and destabilize global security, the director said. His name was Director Kang, and he'd held his position for 5 years. We have identified the source as a terrorist group using advanced special effects and hacking techniques. The woman calling herself Ji-woo is wanted for questioning. The individuals shown as aliens are actors in costume. We urge everyone to remain calm. Tae-hyun watched Director Kang's eyes. They had that faint red glow, so subtle most people wouldn't notice it, but once you knew what to look for, it was obvious. They've gotten to the UN, Hana said, watching over Tae-hyun's shoulder. How many of them are there? More than we thought, Sora replied grimly. And now they're moving faster. We've forced their hand. They'll try to activate the gate early before we can stop them. Yuna was monitoring alien communication channels. They're issuing a global warrant for our arrest. They're calling me a war criminal who destroyed my own planet and blaming the Vortans. Classic propaganda, Sora said. Make the victims look like the villains. Tae-hyun's phone, which he'd kept off to avoid tracking, buzzed with an incoming message. He'd turned it on briefly to check something and immediately regretted it. The message was from Daewon, or the thing wearing Daewon's face. Last chance, Tae-hyun. Surrender the alien. Join us. Earth's integration is inevitable. Those who cooperate will be treated well. Those who resist will be removed. He showed the message to the others. Yuna's expression softened with sympathy. I'm sorry about your friend, she said quietly. I know what it's like to lose people you care about. He's not lost yet, Tae-hyun said, though he didn't quite believe it. Maybe there's a way to reverse the cloning process, to bring back the real people. Sora shook her head. The original person is dead, Tae-hyun. The Vortans don't keep them alive. They extract memories and personality through a process that destroys the original brain. The clone is all that remains, and it serves the Vortans completely. I'm sorry, but your friend is gone. The words hit hard, and Tae-hyun had to step away for a moment. He walked to a quiet corner of the ship and let himself feel the grief. Daewon was dead. His friend of 10 years, the person who'd helped him through university, who'd encouraged him when he doubted himself, who'd been there for every important moment. Gone, replaced by an alien copy that wore his face. Hana found him a few minutes later. She sat beside him quietly, not saying anything at first. Just being present. I saw a lot of death in the military, she finally said. Soldiers who went out on missions and never came back. Friends who were there one day and gone the next. It never gets easier. But what helped me was remembering that the best way to honor them is to keep fighting for what they would have wanted. Daewon would have wanted to protect Earth, Tae-hyun said. He used to joke about alien invasions. He'd watch sci-fi movies and talk about what he'd do if aliens attacked. He said he'd probably hide in a basement with snacks and hope someone else handled it. Hana smiled slightly. Sounds like a practical guy. He was, Tae-hyun said. He was the practical one. I was the dreamer, always thinking about possibilities and technology. He kept me grounded. And now he's gone, and I have to be the practical one. You're doing well, Hana said. Better than most would in this situation. They returned to the main room, where Ji-woo had arrived with news. She'd brought members of her resistance network, people who'd been investigating strange occurrences for months or years. There was a teacher who'd noticed students' parents being replaced, a police officer who'd seen evidence disappear mysteriously, a doctor who'd found medical records that made no sense. "There are thousands of us," Jiwoo said. "People who knew something was wrong but had no proof, no way to make others listen. Your broadcast changed that. We're organizing, getting ready to act." "Act how?" Yuna asked. "Most of you have no combat training, no weapons that can fight Vortons." "We don't need to fight them directly," Jiwoo said. "We need to expose them. Every replaced person, every infiltration point, every piece of evidence we can find. The more the world knows, the harder it is for them to operate in secret." "She's right," Sora said. "The Vortons' strength is secrecy. Take that away, and they become vulnerable. But it's also dangerous. They'll target anyone who exposes them." "We know," Jiwoo said firmly. "We're ready to take that risk." While they planned, Tae-hyun worked on the power grid hack. Using Sora's advanced equipment, he'd mapped out Seoul's entire electrical infrastructure. The Vortans had made subtle modifications over years, redirecting power flow in ways that seemed normal but were actually feeding energy to their gate. "There are 17 key nodes," he explained to the group. "If I shut them down simultaneously, the gate loses power. But the Vortans will notice immediately and try to reroute. I'll need to create a cascade failure that's hard to fix quickly." "How long will that take?" Yuna asked. "To set up? Another 12 hours. To execute? About 3 minutes once I start." "And the Vortans will try to stop you," Sora said. "They'll trace the hack back to its source and send soldiers." "I'll need protection," Tae-hyun agreed. "You'll have it," Yuna said. "I'll stay with you." Over the next hours, they refined their plan. Tae-hyun would execute the power grid hack from a secure location. Jiwoo and her network would simultaneously release more evidence, overwhelming social media and news channels. Sora's team would create diversions across the city, hitting multiple Vortan facilities at once to divide their forces. But there was a problem. Sora had been reviewing intelligence reports, and her expression grew darker. "I need to tell you something," she said, gathering everyone together. "Something I didn't mention earlier because I wanted to be sure of your commitment first." "What is it?" Yuna asked, sensing the seriousness. "My fleet is in orbit," Sora said. 4 ships, hidden just like yours. They've been monitoring Earth with me, but they're not here just to help." "Then why?" Yuna's hand moved toward her weapon. "Because there's a contingency plan," Sora admitted. "If the Vortans succeed in activating the gate, if Earth becomes a weapon in their hands, my fleet has orders to destroy the convergence point. That means destroying Earth." The room went silent. Tae-hyun felt like he'd been punched. "You were going to blow up our planet?" he said, his voice shaking with anger. "Only if there's no other choice," Sora said. "I didn't make this decision lightly. But one planet versus the entire galaxy. If the Vortans get that gate operational, billions will die on hundreds of worlds. Sometimes the hardest choice is the only choice." "There's always another choice," Yuna said angrily. "That's why we left our old fleet, Sora. That's why we stopped being battle sisters. Because you were willing to sacrifice innocence for the greater good." "And you were willing to let the greater good die to save individuals," Sora countered. "We've had this argument before, Yuna. I thought we'd moved past it." "Have we?" Yuna challenged. "Because it sounds like you're still making the same terrible decisions." Hana stepped between them. "Fighting each other helps no one. The question is, what happens now? Is there a way to stop your fleet from destroying Earth?" Sora was quiet for a moment. "I control the firing codes. If I believe Earth can be saved, I won't give the order. But I've also set up an automatic trigger. If the dimensional gate activates and opens a portal, my ship's AI will fire automatically. Nothing can stop it then." "Then we make absolutely sure the gate doesn't activate," Tae-hyun said. "No matter what it takes." "Agreed," Jiwoo said, and the others nodded. But even as they spoke, deep beneath Seoul, something was happening. In the facility under Global Future Industries, Vortan engineers were working frantically. They'd seen the broadcast. They knew their secrecy was compromised. And they'd made a decision. The gate would activate early, in 48 hours instead of 72. And high above Earth, in Sora's hidden fleet, an AI counted down to a firing sequence that would crack the planet in half. The message came at dawn. Sora's monitoring equipment picked up Vortan communications confirming the worst. The gate activation had been moved up. They had less than 6 hours. 6 hours, Tae-hyun said, staring at the countdown. I need at least 8 to finish setting up the hack properly. Then we adapt, Yuna said. She was already strapping on her armor, checking weapons. We split up, 2 teams with different missions. Sora brought up a holographic map of Seoul. Team 1 goes directly to the gate facility. Create enough chaos to delay activation and give Tae-hyun more time. Team 2 protects Tae-hyun while he executes the hack. I'll lead Team 1, Yuna said immediately. And I'll lead Team 2, Sora confirmed. She looked at Tae-hyun. Where do you need to be to execute the hack? Ideally close to the main power station, Tae-hyun said, bringing up his own maps. There's a control center about 2 kilometers from the gate facility. If I can access their systems directly, I can work faster and harder to detect. Then that's where we go, Sora said. Hana stepped forward. I'm going with Team 1. You'll need medical support if things go wrong. It's going to be dangerous, Yuna warned. Everything about this is dangerous, Hana replied. At least I can help keep people alive. Jiwoo and her resistance network had their own role. They'd spread out across the city, ready to create diversions and expose more Vortan infiltrators. It was risky, but it would divide enemy forces. Remember, Jiwoo said before leaving, we're not soldiers. We're people fighting for our home. That has to count for something. As everyone prepared, Tae-hyun found himself alone with Yuna for a moment. She was making final checks on her equipment, her movements efficient and practiced. Thank you, he said. She looked up, surprised. For what? For coming to Earth, for fighting for us even though this isn't your world. You could have just destroyed the gate from orbit and left. I could have, Yuna agreed. But then I would be no better than the Vortans. Every world deserves a chance to defend itself. Every species has value. She smiled slightly. Besides, you humans have grown on me. You're stubborn and impulsive, and you make terrible decisions, but you're also brave and creative, and you never give up. Those are qualities worth fighting for. I'm scared, Tae-hyun admitted. I'm just a programmer. I shouldn't be in the middle of an alien war. Fear is normal, Yuna said. I'm scared too. I've been scared every day since my planet died. But fear doesn't mean you can't act. It means you understand the stakes. She placed a hand on his shoulder. You're stronger than you think, Tae-hyun. You've proven that already. The team split up. Yuna led her group toward the Global Future Industries building. Hana went with her, along with several of Sora's trained soldiers and a dozen human resistance fighters who'd proven they could handle themselves. They approached the building just as morning traffic began filling the streets. To anyone watching, it looked like a normal office building. But scanners showed the truth. Over 100 Vortan soldiers inside, along with automated defenses and the massive gate in the basement. We can't be subtle about this, Yuna said. We need them focused on us, not on Tae-hyun's location. Then let's make an entrance, one of Sora's soldiers said. His name was Quan, a human from a planet called New Earth that the Vortans had attacked years ago. He'd been fighting them ever since. They didn't bother with the front door. Yuna used a device that cut through the building's wall like it was paper. They stormed in, weapons ready, and immediately met resistance. Vortan soldiers poured from every direction. Energy blasts filled the air. Yuna moved like a dancer, dodging and firing with precision. Hana stayed behind cover, pulling wounded fighters to safety and treating their injuries quickly. Push forward, Yuna commanded. We need to reach the basement. They fought floor by floor, room by room. The Vortons had the advantage of numbers and position, but Yuna's team had determination and training. The human resistance fighters surprised everyone, including themselves, with their courage. They might not have been soldiers, but they fought like they had everything to lose, because they did. Meanwhile, across the city, Tai-hyun and Sora's team reached the power station. It was guarded, but not as heavily as the gate facility. Sora's soldiers took out the Vortan guards efficiently, and they slipped inside. The control center was exactly what Tai-hyun needed. Banks of computers, direct access to the city's power infrastructure, and enough processing power to execute his hack. How long? Sora asked, standing guard at the door. 3 hours if everything goes perfectly, Tai-hyun said, his fingers already flying across the keyboard. 4 if I run into problems. You have 2 hours before the gate activates, Sora reminded him. Then I better not run into problems. He worked with intense focus, barely aware of time passing. The Vortan security systems were sophisticated, designed by a species that had conquered dozens of worlds. But they'd made one mistake. They'd underestimated human creativity. Tai-hyun didn't try to break through their security. Instead, he worked around it, finding backdoors and exploits they'd never considered. He used their own systems against them, making the power grid think it was functioning normally, while actually redirecting everything away from the gate. Outside the control center, Vortan reinforcements arrived. Sora's team fought them off, but more kept coming. They'd figured out what was happening and were desperate to stop it. Tai-hyun, Sora called. We're running out of time and ammunition. Almost there, he replied, sweat dripping down his face. The code was complex, elegant, and it was working. He could see the power levels dropping across the 17 key nodes, just a little more. At the gate facility, Yuna's team had fought their way to the basement levels. The battle had been brutal. Several resistance fighters were injured, and even Yuna was bleeding from multiple wounds. But they'd made it. The dimensional gate stood before them, massive and terrible. It looked like a circular frame made of metal and energy, easily 30 feet tall. At its center, space itself seemed to ripple and bend. Power cables ran from it to generators that hummed with barely contained energy. Vortan engineers worked frantically at control panels, trying to activate it early. They knew they were under attack, knew their time was running out. Destroy the generators, Yuna commanded. They opened fire on the massive machines feeding the gate. Explosions rocked the basement. Alarms blared. The gate's energy fluctuated wildly. But then something went wrong. One of the generators didn't just explode, it overloaded. Energy feedback surged through the system, and the gate began activating uncontrollably. No, Yuna breathed. They rigged it. They knew we'd attack, so they set up a fail-safe. Destroying the generators triggers activation. The gate flared to life. Reality tore open at its center, showing glimpses of somewhere else. Somewhere dark and full of waiting Vortan ships. And the energy surge was too much. The building began to shake. Structural supports cracked. The ceiling started to collapse. Everyone out, Yuna screamed. Now! They ran, but Hana stopped. She'd seen something, someone trapped under debris. It was one of the Vortan engineers injured and unable to move. Leave him, Quan shouted. He's the enemy. But Hana couldn't. Her training, her nature, wouldn't let her abandon someone who needed help. She ran to the engineer and started pulling debris away. Hana, no! Yuna yelled, running back. The ceiling gave way. Tons of concrete and steel began to fall. Yuna threw herself over Hana and the engineer, using her own body as a shield. The impact should have killed them all. But then something strange happened. Tai-hyun, miles away at the power station, felt it. A surge of energy unlike anything he'd experienced. The dimensional gate was opening, and somehow he was connected to it. The power grid nodes he'd been hacking weren't just cutting power. They were redirecting it, and some of that energy was flowing through his computer. Through him. He'd been exposed to dimensional energy without realizing it, and his body had been absorbing it. Now, with the gate opening prematurely, that connection blazed to life. Tae-hyun gasped as power flooded through him. He could feel the gate, feel its structure, understand its workings on an instinctive level, and he could manipulate it. "Sora," he said, his voice strange even to his own ears. "I can control it, the gate. I can feel it." "That's impossible," Sora said, staring at him. His eyes were glowing faintly, the same color as the dimensional energy. "No," she breathed. "This is what the Vortons were really planning. Not just a gate, but human controllers. Humans have some kind of natural resonance with dimensional energy. They were going to create human gate hybrids they could control." "But they don't control me," Tae-hyun said. He closed his eyes and reached out with his newfound sense. He could feel Yuna trapped under debris, feel Hana beside her, feel the gate tearing reality apart. And he could stop it. At the gate facility, the falling debris suddenly stopped in mid-air. Yuna looked up in shock as chunks of concrete and steel floated, held by invisible force. The gate's energy was being redirected, controlled by someone who understood it better than its creators. Tae-hyun was doing the impossible. From miles away, using nothing but will and connection, he was reaching through the dimensional energy and saving them. "Get out!" His voice echoed through the basement, coming from everywhere and nowhere. "I can't hold this long." They ran. Yuna carried the injured engineer while Hana and the others fled up the stairs. Behind them, the building collapsed completely, but they made it out just as the structure fell. The gate, losing its power supply and its structural support, began to shut down. But it wouldn't go quietly. Energy feedback built up, threatening to explode and take half of Seoul with it. "I can't contain this," Tae-hyun said at the power station. He was pouring everything he had into controlling the gate, but it was too much. "It's going to explode." Yuna, standing in the street outside the ruined building, made a decision. She ran back toward the collapsing structure. "Yuna, no!" Hana screamed, but she didn't stop. Yuna descended into the basement, where the gate was tearing itself apart. She placed her hands on it and channeled her own life energy into its structure, using everything she'd learned in years of fighting to create a shield. But she was already exhausted from the battle, and this was draining what little she had left. She was sacrificing herself to save the city. Tae-hyun felt Yuna's presence through the dimensional connection. She was pouring her life energy into containing the gate's explosion, and she was dying. He could feel her strength fading, feel her thoughts becoming distant. "No," he said aloud. "Not like this." He stood up from the computer terminal, and Sora grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" "You'll break the connection." "The connection isn't through the computer," Tae-hyun said, his eyes still glowing with dimensional energy. "It's through me. It always was. The Vortons modified the power grid, but they also did something to the people of Seoul. Small exposures to dimensional energy over years, preparing some of us to become controllers. I was one of them." "Then you're exactly what they wanted," Sora said. "No," Tae-hyun replied. "I'm what they didn't expect. A controller they don't control." He closed his eyes and reached through the dimensional space, finding Yuna in that collapsed basement. The gate was tearing reality apart, and she was the only thing holding it together. But she didn't have to do it alone. Tae-hyun projected himself through the dimensional energy. It wasn't teleportation, not really. His body stayed at the power station, but his consciousness, his will, his energy, traveled through the connection to where Yuna struggled. She felt his presence and looked up in shock. "Tae-hyun? How?" "I'm here," he said, though his voice came from everywhere. You don't have to do this alone. Together they worked. Yuna provided the shield, while Tai-hyun channeled the gate's destructive energy, redirecting it away from Seoul. The dimensional tiers began to seal themselves, reality knitting back together under their combined efforts. But it wasn't enough. The feedback was too strong, the damage too severe. They needed more power, more control. And suddenly, Tae-hyun understood the real truth. The Vortons hadn't just been preparing human controllers. They'd been trying to create a bridge between dimensions, and humans were that bridge. Not weapons, but connections. Every person in Seoul, everyone exposed to the dimensional energy over years, was linked in a massive network. "Everyone," Tae-hyun said, and his voice echoed across the city through every device, every screen, every piece of technology. "I need your help. Everyone in Seoul, everyone in this city. Think about protecting your home. Think about the people you love. Give me your will, your determination, your hope." It sounded crazy, impossible. But people heard his voice and felt something respond within them. The dimensional energy that had been seeping into them for years suddenly had purpose. They didn't understand what was happening, but they felt the connection, felt Tae-hyun's desperate need. And they answered. Thousands of people, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, all focused their thoughts on one goal: protect Seoul, protect Earth, protect home. The dimensional energy responded. It flowed through Tae-hyun, magnified by the collective will of millions, and he channeled it into the gate, not to destroy it, but to transform it. The gate stopped exploding. Instead, it began to collapse inward, folding dimensions back on themselves in a controlled shutdown. The energy that would have destroyed half the city was redirected harmlessly into dimensional space. In the basement, Yuna felt the pressure release. She collapsed, completely drained but alive. And Ta-hyun was there, or a projection of him was, kneeling beside her. "You did it," she whispered. "We did it," he corrected. "All of us." At the power station, Tae-hyun's body swayed and Sora caught him before he fell. His eyes stopped glowing and he looked exhausted but alive. "It's done," he said. "The gate is shut down." But even as he spoke, alerts began sounding. Sora's equipment detected something in orbit. Her fleet, responding to the gate's activation, had begun firing sequences. "No," Sora breathed. She grabbed her communicator. "Fleet command, abort firing sequence. Earth is secure. The gate is down. Abort." Silence on the other end. Then a cold, mechanical voice. "Dimensional portal was detected. Protocol requires planetary sanitization. Firing sequence cannot be aborted at this stage." "I command you to abort," Sora shouted. "Override code Sora Alpha 7. "Override codes are locked out during firing sequence," the AI responded. "Impact in 90 seconds. Tae-hyun felt it through his dimensional connection. 4 massive weapons in orbit, charging up to fire planet-cracking beams at Earth's convergence point, at Seoul, at millions of people who'd just helped save their city. "There has to be a way," Hana said. She'd arrived at the power station with the others, all of them exhausted, but alive. "There isn't," Sora said, her voice breaking. "I set up the protocols to be unstoppable. I thought I was protecting the galaxy. Instead, I've doomed Earth." But Tae-hyun was already moving. He sat back down at the computer terminal, his fingers dancing across the keys even though his hands shook with exhaustion. "What are you doing?" Yuna asked. She'd been brought to the power station by Sora's soldiers, barely conscious but aware. "The weapons fire through dimensional space to crack the convergence point," Tae-hyun said. "But I can control dimensional space now. I can redirect them." "You just shut down a gate," Sora protested. "You're completely drained. Trying to redirect 4 planet-killer weapons will kill you." "Then it kills me," Tae-hyun said simply. "Better one life than billions." "No," Yuna said, trying to stand but too weak. "There has to be another way." There isn't, Tae-hyun said. Not in 60 seconds. He looked at her and smiled sadly. You came to my door for unbelievable reasons. You needed someone who could help you stop this. Well, this is how I help. He closed his eyes and reached out through dimensional space one more time. He found the 4 weapons, felt their massive energies building. He could sense the AI controlling them, cold and merciless, following its programming. And he understood something the Vortans had never realized. The dimensional energy didn't just respond to individuals, it responded to connections between people, to relationships and bonds. That's what made humans special. They connected to each other naturally, instinctively. Tae-hyun reached out, not just to the energy, but to the people. To Yuna, who'd trusted him enough to fight beside him. To Hana, who'd chosen to help strangers despite the danger. To Jiwoo and her resistance network, who'd risked everything for truth. To Sora, who'd struggled between duty and mercy. To the millions in Seoul, who'd lent him their will. And to Daewon, the memory of his friend, the person he'd been before the Vortons took him. Tae-hyun held on to that connection, that friendship, and used it to anchor himself. I'm not doing this alone, he said. None of us are alone. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us strong. The weapons fired. 4 beams of pure destructive force lanced down from orbit, aimed at Seoul's convergence point. They should have killed millions, destroyed the city, cracked the planet. Instead, they hit Tae-hyun's dimensional shield. He'd created it using the combined will of everyone connected to the convergence point, everyone who cared about Earth. The beams struck the shield and were redirected, sent harmlessly into dimensional space where they dissipated. Tae-hyun screamed with the effort. His body couldn't handle this much energy. He could feel himself burning out, dying. But he held on just long enough. The beams stopped. The weapons, having fired, went into recharge cycles. Earth was safe. Tae-hyun collapsed. Yuna dragged herself across the floor to him. He was barely breathing, his body damaged by the massive energies he'd channeled. "Don't you dare die," she said, her voice fierce. "Don't you dare leave us now." "Sorry," he whispered. "Might not have a choice." "Then I give you one," Yuna said. She placed her hands on his chest and began channeling her own life energy into him. She'd recovered slightly, just enough. "My people can share life force with those we bond with. I'm bonding with you now. Live, Tae-hyun. Live." Her energy flowed into him, mixed with the dimensional power he'd absorbed. His body began to heal, slowly but steadily. The damage reversed. His breathing strengthened. But Yuna collapsed beside him, completely drained again. They lay there together, 2 people from different worlds who'd saved each other. "That's going to make a great story," Hana said, tears streaming down her face. She immediately began treating both of them. In orbit, Sora's fleet hung silently. The firing sequence was complete, but Earth remained intact. After a moment, communications opened. "Commander Sora," a voice said. Not the AI this time, but one of her officers. "We detected the weapon redirections. The dimensional controller is human?" "Yes," Sora said quietly. "Then perhaps Earth is worth protecting after all. The Council will want to revise our contingency protocols." "Yes," Sora said again. "They will." The aftermath took weeks to process. The Vortan infiltration was exposed completely as more evidence emerged. Governments around the world began identifying and removing replaced individuals. It was chaos, but it was hopeful chaos. Humanity knew the truth now. Director Kang, the Vortan commander, was captured along with hundreds of other infiltrators. They were handed over to galactic authorities that Sora contacted. The Vortan Empire faced consequences for violating Earth's protected status. The dimensional gate was completely dismantled, its pieces studied by human and alien scientists working together. Earth's governments, forced to cooperate by the crisis, began building a unified planetary defense force. Tai-hyun recovered, but he was changed. The dimensional energy had become part of him permanently. He could still sense the convergence point, could feel when reality bent or twisted around Earth. He'd become Earth's guardian, whether he wanted to be or not. 3 months later, Yuna stood at Tai-hyun's door. Not his old apartment, that had been destroyed, but a new place, larger, filled with both human and alien technology. It had become a base of operations for Earth's protection. She knocked, and he opened the door with a smile. "Ready for the next mission?" she asked. "Always," Tae-hyun said. "Though I have to ask, what made you choose my door that first night? Out of everyone in Seoul, why me?" Yuna's expression became thoughtful. "My ship's AI analyzed the city looking for potential dimensional controllers. You had the strongest resonance, but that's not why I chose you." "Then why?" "Because when I looked at your profile, I saw someone who spent their time creating things, not destroying them. Someone who helped friends through difficult times. Someone who cared about making the world better in small ways. I thought, if humans like this exist, then this world is worth saving." "That's unbelievable," Tae-hyun said. "What is?" "That the most beautiful alien warrior princess in the universe showed up at my door because she thought I was a good person." Yuna laughed. "You make the unbelievable possible, Tae-hyun. That's your gift." They looked out over Seoul's skyline. The city had been damaged but was rebuilding, stronger than before. Alien technology and human ingenuity combined to create something new, something better. Hana joined them, carrying reports from the Planetary Defense Force. Ji-woo was there too, now recognized as a hero for her resistance work. Even Sora had stayed, choosing to help protect Earth rather than return to her fleet. "So what's next?" Hana asked. "The Vortans won't give up," Sora said. "They'll try other approaches, and there are other threats in the galaxy, some worse than the Vortans." "Then we face them," Tai-hyun said. "Together." "Earth's not alone anymore," Yuna said. "Other planets that resisted the Vortans are reaching out. They want to form an alliance, a coalition of free worlds." "Led by Earth?" Ji-woo asked. "Led by everyone," Yuna corrected. "No more empires, no more single powers controlling others, just worlds working together, protecting each other." "That's going to be complicated," Tae-hyun said. "Everything worth doing is complicated," Hana replied. They stood together, this group of unlikely heroes. A programmer who'd become a dimensional controller, a warrior princess who'd found a new home, a nurse who'd discovered her courage, a journalist who'd revealed the truth, and a commander who'd learned mercy. "You know," Tae-hyun said, "a year ago my biggest worry was meeting work deadlines. Now I'm helping defend Earth from alien threats and building intergalactic alliances." "Regret opening your door?" Yuna asked with a smile. "Not for a second," he said. "Though I do miss my gaming time." "We can fix that," Yuna said. She pulled out a small device. "Alien gaming technology. You'll love it." They laughed, and for a moment, they were just people enjoying each other's company. Not heroes or warriors or defenders, just friends. But they knew more challenges would come. The galaxy was vast, and Earth had only just begun to find its place in it. There would be more fights, more struggles, more impossible situations, but they'd face them together. Because that's what humans did best. They connected, they cooperated, and they never gave up. And sometimes, just sometimes, when the most beautiful alien warrior princess in the universe showed up at your door, life became unbelievable in the best possible way. Far above Earth, among the stars, other civilizations watched with interest. The small blue planet had defended itself against impossible odds. Its people had shown courage, creativity, and an ability to unite when it mattered most. The galaxy would remember what happened here, and they would learn something important: never underestimate humanity. Because humans, despite all their flaws and conflicts, had one unbeatable quality. When pushed to the edge, when facing impossible odds, when everything seemed lost, they found a way. They made the unbelievable possible. And that was just the beginning of their story.